The grandeur of the Ardennes forest in southeast Belgium provides a spectacular backdrop to Formula One's restart as the duel between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel sees them sharing the front row of the grid for only the third time this season. The beautiful countryside here might not be home to the majority of the nation's population, but it does contain one of the most magnificent racing circuits anywhere in the world. And today, the 63rd running of the Belgian Grand Prix promises to be a cracker. Well, motorsport's been taking place in this area since the 1920s, when a local media magnate had the idea of promoting the region through racing. And thankfully, the modifications made in the 1980s, if anything, enhanced the track, despite making it a little bit shorter. And it's still the longest on the calendar that we are on this year. It needs some serious horsepower to be fast here. Both the first and third sectors are largely flat out in the dry, while the chassis is tested in that middle sector where the cars drop virtually the full 100 metres of elevation change. It really is a superb venue. Well, 20 years ago, a mistake from my co-commentator had a rather large domino effect. While we can certainly ask our friend Mark Webber how to overtake at Eau Rouge as he mastered the art back in 2011. But Mika Häkkinen's pass on Michael Schumacher while lapping Ricardo Zonta in 2000 is still one of the most memorable from any generation. The front runners will start the race today on the super soft tyres, and how well that tyre lasts in the first stint could determine their ability to achieve a good result. The soft will likely be used by some starting further back, and we know that Valtteri Bottas, for example, is at the back. He'll be starting on that tyre. So here's the grid then. Lewis Hamilton on his 6th pole position of the season. Sebastian Vettel, his 8th front row start of the year. Esteban Ocon, his best qualifying. He has been 3rd on the grid before. 4th alongside him, Sergio Perez. Romain Grosjean, an excellent 5th. That matches his best of the season. Kimi Raikkonen starts in 6th place. The 2 Red Bulls are next on the 4th row, 7th and 8th for Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo. 9th place for Kevin Magnussen, and 10th place being promoted by penalties for other Pierre Gasly. 11th place, his teammate at Toro Rosso's Brendan Hartley. Charles Leclerc, the new star at Sauber, he's gone well. He's in 12th. He's ahead of Marcus Ericsson, his teammate, and Fernando Alonso, who starts in 14th place. Sergei Sorokin is 15th, ahead of his Williams teammate Lance Stroll in 16th position. And then as we get down towards the back, it's Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hülkenberg. They had engine penalties, and also taking engine penalties after qualifying, Carlos Sainz and Stoffel van Dorn. So that's how the 20 cars line up in preparation for the start of this race. Coming from the back, Valtteri Bottas will have plenty of work to do. Lewis Hamilton came from the back here a few years ago with engine penalties in a similar situation and came through to finish in 3rd place. That was in 2016. So he'll be looking to try and backing that up. Romain Grosjean, mind you, is much nearer the front. He's 5th on the grid, and Haas have a real chance of closing the gap on Renault in the Constructors' Championship. For Force India, they have 0 points in the Constructors' Championship because it's a new entry after the team was taken out of administration. But they've got a chance of beating Williams at the bottom end of the Constructors' Championship if they score some good points here today. Huge opportunities for those pink cars, but what will happen up front? Round 13 of the Formula One World Championship of 2018 is soon to get underway. The final formation lap starts with Lewis Hamilton leading away from pole position and Sebastian Vettel following him along, waiting for those last few cars to get away. Carlos Sainz now down at the very back of the field after taking the engine penalties.
Just remember which direction that wind is. So as I said, it's going to be head into 12 and tail out of 15. So have a think about how that's going to affect all your corners.
And it does have an effect here, there's no doubt about it. So the wind speed, wind direction, absolutely crucial. Let's get a word from Karun in the pits.
Yeah, Ben, I've actually wandered out the back on the hill, heading from La Sauce down to Eau Rouge, pretty much where DC had his little incident in '98. But the wind has certainly picked up. I'm looking at the flags at the top of the old pit, and they're really, really gusting hard. The flares I can see at the top of the hill with the Max Verstappen fans. It's a fantastic atmosphere here. But what does Lewis Hamilton do on the first lap? We talked about it on the grid, both Mark and I before. It's absolutely critical for him. But even later in the race, I think they could be susceptible. In terms of straight line speed, the Ferraris were about 4 kilometers an hour faster than the Mercedes drivers in free practice and in qualifying. So I think, unlike last year, where the Mercedes was clearly the quicker car in a straight line, it could be harder for Lewis to defend himself here. Raikkonen as well, he's going to be on the charge early on. Strategically, still looking at a one-stopper, it seems. I've just had a quick chat with Mario Sola on the grid, the Pirelli man. He does think they should be all on course for a one-stop.
Thanks, Karun. The cars are well over halfway round on this final formation lap. Of course, it takes a little longer here at Spa. The full 4.3 mile distance to be consumed. And Lewis Hamilton has already brought the pace down to make sure that everybody is stacked up together. He then accelerates quite hard. And as he comes out of Paul Frere corner, and everybody bunching up. There is Esteban Ocon. What an opportunity this is for the Frenchman. Best finish he's had so far this year is a 6th place, and his family watching from the back of the Force India garage. A family who were very united in his younger karting days. They lived in a caravan, basically. The van had the cart in the back of it. The caravan was what they lived in, and they toured France as he tried to make a name for himself. Well, he certainly achieved that, and he's got a real opportunity here today, starting in 3rd place. Sergio Perez, his teammate, remember, is on the 2nd row with him. We'll be watching from behind for the likes of Kimi Raikkonen. He's starting from 6th place. The 2 Red Bulls out of position, really, you would say. We'd have expected them to have been on the 3rd row. They're on the 4th row instead. And Christian Horner told us on the grid, the boys are free to race, but give each other room. Hasn't always happened this year. Let's see if they can manage it. And talking of that, the 2 Force Indias took each other out effectively here last year, although Ocon actually did manage to finish the race, but they did hit one another on the run down to Eau Rouge during the race, and it caused a safety car period. So let's hope teammates can stay out of each other's way. There's enough to think about without crashing into your own teammate here. For Ferrari, well, there's quite a gap, of course, between Vettel on the front row and Raikkonen in 6th.
Well, just looking out from a commentary box, Ben, it's always fascinating to see how the drivers position themselves on the grid. There's a yellow painted line that you can see, which is to enable the drivers to see roughly where they should put the front wheel. We've got Max Verstappen a few inches in front of it, trying to steal as much as he can in the run to the first corner.
We're all set for the race in Belgium. Lights out, away we go. It's pretty even from the 2 front row men. Look behind as well. Hamilton is going to try and take this start. And Vettel out wide. There's all contact to the background. Up and over goes Stoffel Van Dorn, I believe. Oh, it's Alonso. It's Alonso. It's a bit like 2012 all over again. Alonso crashing out at the start. Van Dorn was involved. Hamilton leads from Vettel. Ocon is in 3rd place, tucked in behind the Ferrari. Then his own teammate.
That was a good up and over for Vettel. You can see he's already in the slipstream in Hamilton, so he's going to have enough to take the lead. Hamilton will pick up his slipstream again, try and get around the outside.
Up to the end of the Kemmel Straight, and it's Vettel in front. A vital pass there on the opening lap, just like 2013 when he did that and went on to win the race. The safety car, they've all slowed down. So he's got the pass done just in time before the safety car came out and meant no overtaking is allowed. And there is Alonso, and well, it does remind me of that 2012 incident, but it happened from much further back this time, where he was suddenly sideways in the middle. That's Hulkenberg, who's out of his Renault and walking away. So it's good news that both drivers seem fine, but damage to Raikkonen. Oh, he's got a puncture, right rear puncture on Raikkonen's car. Oh, not getting any better for the Finn this weekend, is it?
No, this safety car, though, might be a saving grace for him, because he'll be able to get in, get a tyre, and then try and get back to the pack. So let's just watch what happened. Hamilton and Vettel, very similar on the starts. Let's look down into the middle of the pack where Fernando Alonso is. Does someone come across? No, he gets rammed from behind.
Wow. Huge.
Yeah, it was Hulkenberg that rammed the back of him, and that sent him over the Sauber. So just watch on the right-hand side of screen. You're going to see Hulkenberg completely lock up, punt into the back of Alonso, and then scary stuff as he flies up and over the top of the Sauber.
Charles Leclerc, that was the car that he took off over, and it's taken the rear wing off Charles Leclerc, punctured and damaged the right rear. Do you think there was a brake problem on this car? Because it's rare to see somebody do something like this.
Well, it's complete lock-up. Let's just watch. Yeah, absolutely. Just couldn't get the rotation under control. It's almost like the rear brakes weren't working there. We've got a fly-by-wire system, and well, the halo doing its thing. You can just see the rubber mark on the front of Leclerc's halo there as the McLaren bounced over the top.
Fernando Alonso, let's just have a look. You'll see this from Leclerc's viewpoint then when the McLaren comes bouncing. Oh my goodness. As you say, the halo doing its job. That's exactly what it was designed for. And looking back to the accident that Alonso had here in 2012, he was very lucky not to get hurt in a similar incident. I think there was a problem with the Renault, the way it just did not slow at all.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that, Ben. Let's just see where the contact came on Raikkonen. So it was on the exit of the corner, actually, exit of the source. So was it on the Red Bull, Daniel Ricciardo?
So a lot of people have been...
Oh, look at that, no rear wing. The rear wing's gone.
Right, so no rear wing on Daniel Ricciardo's car.
We didn't see that contact going into the corner. So are they going to fix that? They can absolutely work on the car and put another rear wing on and get it back out again if they wanted to.
So it's a pretty tough ask to try and change the rear wing. They're used to changing the front wings on a pit stop. Both drivers will presumably be taken off to the medical centre. But everybody has come into the pits. Now, was that because they had to do that behind safety car, I guess?
Yeah, I think the incident at the first corner meant that they sent people through the pit lane rather than around there for the debris on track.
But one or two people have had to have attention, and that includes Kimi Raikkonen here. So it's a full safety car. He will be able to join the back of the queue, which is all the way at Rivage now. So let's see what happened to Vettel when he got past Hamilton.
He just got a much better run up through Eau Rouge. Hamilton, I'm going to assume, had to have a small lift, and that allowed him to use that higher top speed. Even with 100 kilos of fuel on board, you can see the speed of the Ferrari, but also the Force Indias. We heard from Otmar that they've set the cars up to be quick in a straight line for the race. And look at the toe that he gets off the back of the Mercedes. Almost getting himself in a position to take the lead of the Grand Prix.
And then Perez managed to have a go as well and nip round the outside of him and actually get the place. I think he was being so careful about not messing up with the championship contenders. He backed out of it and Perez took full advantage. Verstappen is now in 5th and Grosjean is in 6th, with Magnussen following, Gasly in 8th place, Ericsson and Sirotkin. But sadly, back in the garage is Daniel Ricciardo. Karun.
Yeah, I just want to think ahead now, because on the restart, Lewis is going to be in that position, isn't he, with the slipstream, because his roles are reversed. Now, the Mercedes isn't as fast as a Ferrari in a straight line. This is basically a role reversal of what we saw last year, and in some ways what we saw on lap 1, because, you know, he's going to have a mega toe. But those two Force Indias, are they going to play ball? They're you know, lots of rumours about them being a Mercedes B team next year, but are they going to play ball and just let Lewis try and fight Sebastian?
We shall see. The safety car remains out there for the moment, and we could have lost 4 cars already from this race if Ricciardo is a confirmed retirement. Another look at the start once again, and most of the action was further down the pack, of course. Yeah, well, back right of screen, that's where Hulkenberg kicks off, but let's just see if we can see... the rear wing was taken off by Alonso on the back of the Red Bull, so we hadn't picked that up in the first replay, but yeah, and then you can see the further contact with the Red Bull leaving the turn. This is back in 2012, David, when Fernando Alonso suffered something really quite similar. He was in a Ferrari on this occasion, and you'll see Romain Grosjean flying over the top, and that kicked Alonso's car up in the air. It took Lewis Hamilton out as well. Interesting that with one of the shortest runs to the first corner of any Grand Prix track, that we see so many incidents. It is, but it's so crucial, isn't it? So important to try and gain a place or two down into that hairpin. Stoffel Van Dorn's been into the pits and gone back out, but Ricciardo's still there, I'm afraid, as they continue to work on the car.
Yeah, Daniel, just sit tight for now, mate. We are looking at that ribbing. Obviously, but we're going to try and see if we can fix it.
So they obviously want to try and get him back out, even though he's going to be a couple of laps down, you would think.
Yeah, interesting that they would want to do that. As you can see, the extent of the damage on Fernando Alonso's McLaren. Not a loved car by any stretch of the imagination, but all of that debris there will go back to the factory, and it's very difficult for teams to actually analyse, once you've laid up carbon fibre, how good a job you've done, whether you've used too much glue and added weight that you shouldn't have. So they do actually analyse all of the damaged parts when they're sent back to the factory to understand how they can improve the manufacturing process going forward.
So Sebastian Vettel leads them round behind the safety car, and just trying to keep that tyre temperature up. These guys are on the super soft tyres that they started the race on. By the way, coming up into 5th place, Max Verstappen, as we saw, and well, we'll be keeping a close eye on what he does in the Red Bull. Karun.
Yeah, while we're looking at the two number ones, shall we say, Ferrari and Mercedes, quick line on their respective teammates. Raikkonen obviously pitted for those medium compound tyres now, so I think they're going to try and stretch this out. I'm not sure they'll get all the way to the end, but they're going to try and stretch it as long as possible. Crucially for him, as David mentioned, the safety car has helped, so he's managed to stay on the lead lap, which is good news. Valtteri Bottas, meanwhile, I think they swapped him to a set of the super softs. So Valtteri, of course, started the race on a set of the yellow sidewall soft tyres, and they've now put him onto a set of the super softs. So there's no chance he's going to get to the end of the race on that, so he's got to pit again. So slightly confusing why they wouldn't put him on a set of mediums as well, but there you go.
Okay, well, some differing strategies going on amongst the front runners. Another look at the start once again. Certainly okay for the top two. They got away cleanly. The two Force Indias were pretty clean off the line. Grosjean got a good start, and then Kimi Raikkonen, well, we know that he ended up with a puncture. Yeah, Bottas had a lock-up, didn't he?
Well, Bottas hit.
What did he do?
Actually, Bottas had contact.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a big lock-up in the background.
Get an opportunity to see that again. Let's see. It looked to me as if he's run into the back of the Williams. There you go, damaged his front wing.
Now that looks a bit more conventional lock-up, just not having the downforce he was expecting into the first corner.
That's right.
And that was the flying Fernando Alonso. That must be pretty horrible for Alonso to go through such a similar scenario. This was Raikkonen now having picked up a puncture.
Yeah, you can see the Red Bull with no rear wing. Debris flying off the car as he makes his way up through Eau Rouge.
Raikkonen's been one of the quickest all weekend.
Yeah, I have a puncture. Somebody hit me from the rear. Copy. My end plate is also broken. Looks like somebody hit me quite here. Looks like.
Well, he's picking that. He's picking up that.
Everything breaking down now with the tire flap.
Yeah, I was going to say, important that the drivers set their mirrors, not only to see out the back of the car, but they normally set them so they can see the profile of the rear tyre. And you can tell that he was obviously able to see the rear wing end plate as well, and explain to the team. And the reason that you want to be able to see your rear tyre is, to see in circuits if you're getting blistering or graining, and you can, use that information, feed it back to the team.
Safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap. So Sebastian Vettel now has the task of trying to fend off Lewis Hamilton on the restart. Now last year Hamilton was very good on the restart, very clever, and managed to fend off Vettel. Can Vettel return the favour? So he's got to dictate the pace. He allows the safety car to accelerate away, and this is normal procedure. He allows the safety car to go, and then it's up to Vettel as to when he accelerates. Behind him you've got Hamilton, then Perez and Ocon. Verstappen is 5th, Grosjean is 6th. You're on board here with Lewis Hamilton. Now, he needs to spot that exact moment that Vettel goes for it. Waiting, patience. He's keeping them all stacked up. He's keeping them guessing. Where's he going to go for it? Where's he going to go for it? On board with Ocon here. He'll want to get back past his teammate. Away goes Vettel now. Gets hard on the power, but Hamilton reads the situation beautifully and is right there with him. Vettel has been unable to make a break at all. Hamilton's going to have a go down into the hairpin. Oh, Vettel sees it coming, breaks really late and just about fends him off. But now he's going to have a task all the way down to try and open up that gap.
Well, a little bit of under-rotation for Hamilton, and that's just put him slightly out of position as he run down to the source. That's given Vettel a bit of breathing space. And, well, everyone else filing through in clean order. And look at that, Hamilton again has just crucially dropped back a little bit from Vettel. And I think that's going to give Vettel enough space as he goes over the hill at Eau Rouge to not be under pressure at the end of the Camel Straight.
Keep an eye on the Williams drivers. They were racing each other pretty hard, and they've got a chance of scoring points today. They're in 10th and 11th places. First time Sirotkin has ever run in the points. Vettel's got that edge. Yes, he stayed in front of Lewis Hamilton. As you said, David, he'd opened up just enough of the gap, and Hamilton's got to work to do now. So Ocon is still chasing Perez, and behind them we've got Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. There he is. He is still on the super soft tyre that he started this race on. Behind him we've got Grosjean and Magnussen in the two Haas cars. Great opportunity for them to close and even maybe pass Renault in the Constructors' Championship. So a lot on offer here. Gasly's in the points in 8th. Sirotkin's now up to 9th ahead of Ericsson. Stroll is down in 11th. Then Hartley in 12th. Sainz, who started down towards the back, 13th. Bottas, 14th. And Bottas very quick in that first sector. Raikkonen, who was able to join the back of the queue, could still be a factor in this race, despite having had that puncture on the opening lap. But look at that way. The top two are now running away from those two Force Indias. Vettel, Hamilton, and then the gap opening up to Perez and Ocon. And either of these guys would love to try and get a podium finish today.
That would be a big result for that team, newly named, of course, new ownership. But I'm just wondering whether Hamilton, that little lock-up, it looked innocent enough at the chicane, but whether that will have given him a little bit of vibration, a bit of a flat spot on that tyre, and he'll already be in a sort of management situation where running in the dirty air of the Ferrari in front, you know, Mercedes, that's not always been particularly strong for them. You get good performance in that car when they're running in nice clean air, maximum downforce available.
On that lap, he did a second a lap faster than Hamilton on that lap, Vettel. He is absolutely flying out in front. He's got to manage those tyres to a certain extent, but of course under safety car they were able to look after them. Now you're on board with Max Verstappen. He's in 5th place. He's chasing the Force India of Esteban Ocon in a straight line, though. The Force India is very fast. It's in the corners that the Red Bull might have some strength, but they are running so little wing, it's going to make it hard for them. Sadly, Charles Leclerc is stepping back, and it's 2 in a row non-finishes for him. 2 first lap incidents that were nothing really to do with him. He got sandwiched in Hungary by the 2 Force Indias. Here, he was completely innocent, and he's out of the race.
Yeah, well, what's going to be tricky for Ocon there, you can see the straight line speed advantage that he has, but the Red Bull faster car, and Ocon's dropped more than a second behind his teammates. So when the DRS is activated, that will enable the Red Bull, I think, to get a pass on that Force India. You see the difference in cornering speed between the two cars.
By the way, Daniel Ricciardo's back out on track, but he is a couple of laps down on the leaders, but they did decide to send Ricciardo out. So we have lost 3 cars from this race: Nico Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso and Charles Leclerc, but the rest are still running at the moment. And some fast sectors from Sebastian Vettel once again, as now Max Verstappen gets that little bit closer to the back of the Force India. You can see how he closes up under braking, and it's normal for the final little chicane that brings them across the line. Vettel having opened up a 2.2 second advantage over Lewis Hamilton at this point. Now, you won't necessarily want to build a huge lead just in case there's another safety car period. You'll want to look after the tyres, but Max Verstappen is now really getting into position. DRS is enabled this time, so when they go up the Camel Straight, he'll have a great opportunity.
Yeah, I expect to see him pick up that slipstream, pop open the rear wing. Not that there's much rear wing on that Red Bull. You can see how thin the wing is as he try and get the maximum speed. Here he comes. Will Ocon defend? Yes, he does.
But Verstappen's still going to squeeze out the inside, and he gets the place. Well, Ocon did fight it, but he managed to get through anyway, and the fans are going crazy. The Verstappen fans loving that. There's a real chance for him to get on the podium here today, of course.
You could almost not see the rear wing on that Red Bull once they opened it up. It's such a small rear wing, trying to make up for the deficit in speed. Now watch Ocon, he'll defend to the inside, and then when he comes back to pick up his braking point, that's when Max, brave as you like, throws it down the inside. Yeah, just had the confidence. He saw the previous lap how much better he was in the brakes into that turn, and then was able to take the opportunity, force the opportunity, and make his way after Perez.
These two know each other well, Ocon and Verstappen. They raced together in Formula 3 a few years ago in the junior ranks, and actually Ocon came out on top on that in that series. Of course, different cars here, and Ocon will still be factoring in that points for the team are crucial. He doesn't need to bang wheels and do damage. Force India currently have 0 points under their new ownership, so anything they can get today is very valuable indeed.
It's interesting, just looking, Verstappen's gone fastest in the first sector. See a little battle here between Bottas and that would have been Hartley. Does he get the pass done, Mark Webber style, down into Eau Rouge? Yes, he does. But looking at Verstappen, fastest man in the first sector with the benefit of that slipstream and DRS, and that was very wide and very brave from Bottas in one of the scariest corners on this circuit. And on Verstappen, he has gone 20 kilometers an hour faster, as we see Raikkonen there. As that, Raikkonen missed the apex at turn 4. Has he had an issue when he's missed the apex? That's at the top of Eau Rouge. That looks like he's serving a penalty, the way they're not really sort of...
Yeah, I don't know what that was about, because there's no news of a penalty being given to him. So whether there was some other issue...
Yeah, the rear wing was touched while he was in the pit box there, so it's almost like the DRS was an issue. So, well, I'm sure we'll find out in time exactly what was going on. But, yeah, what I was saying about Verstappen, 20 kilometers an hour faster through the speed trap in the first sector than our race leader Vettel. That is the benefit of DRS, that is the benefit of a slipstream. It just makes you go massively quicker in a straight line.
That's phenomenal, isn't it, when you consider that power-wise, the Red Bull is definitely at a disadvantage compared to those cars. Even the car up ahead of him here, but if he can get into that toe again, as he did with Ocon, then it will drag him along and give him another opportunity to make a pass. For now, Sergio Perez is in that 3rd place, and Mexican success, not unknown here at Spa. Pedro Rodriguez, the Mexican, won the last ever race on the old Spa circuit back in 1970 with a V12 BRM powering him around the track and beating Chris Amon on that occasion, who thought, as usual, the BRM would blow up, but it didn't. And Rodriguez took the final victory on that old track. So Perez would love to try and emulate that, but I don't think he's got much chance of beating Vettel and Hamilton up front. They're in a bit of a race of their own. Vettel's lead, by the way, some 2.7 seconds at this stage. We're riding with Bottas, looking for his fight back through the field.
Yeah, just went a bit deep into the source there, as he'll be trying to get himself positioned to get a run on Sainz. It'll be interesting to see the Mercedes power. I think he's in DRS zone, so he should be able to pick up from quite a way back on Sainz. Yeah, this is going to end up being a pass before the end of the Camel Straight. DRS open. Sainz doesn't even bother waving around to defend. He knew there'd be such an overspeed. Much better for him to continue his battle and try and see if he can get sucked along by Bottas and get a bit closer to Stroll.
And that's Ricciardo behind, but remember, he's not battling for position in the same way because he's a lap down on these guys, so that makes life a little difficult if he can continue. Into the pits again has come Kimi Raikkonen. It is looking like this may well be the end of the race for the Finn, who was looking for a 6th consecutive podium and his 100th podium in Formula One history. I'm very sad to say it's not going to happen here today. From that first corner incident where he got hit from behind, it punctured the rear tyre, damaged the rear wing a little bit, and clearly there's more damage on that car than they first realised. So it looks as though Kimi Raikkonen is going to be a non-finisher here at Spa, which is a great shame. Another great run of finishes came to an end here for Kimi Raikkonen back in 2013. That was the last time he had a non-finish here, and that ended a very long sequence of getting to the checker flag. So a little bit unlucky, even though it's a racetrack he's won at on 4 previous occasions. Right then, David, how well placed is Verstappen to get past Perez now?
Perfectly. He wants to just get himself a nice line through Eau Rouge here. He'll be absolutely flat as he comes up over the rise. Well, he's even closer than he was to Ocon at this stage of the straight. So will Perez even defend? Yes, he does. So it'll force him to go down the outside, and we know that the Red Bull's better on the brakes, and with DRS open, fairly straightforward pass in the end.
And they go crazy in the grandstands from Max Verstappen. You know what? His best ever finish here in Belgium has been 8th place. He's been so out of luck here in recent years. despite being born in Belgium, he has a Belgian mum. He races under a Dutch licence, but this could be a very special day for him and his fans. This is the move. It was very straightforward. He could brake later as well than Perez, and he surged through into third place. So Verstappen now chasing after our two leaders. Whether he's got the pace to really close up to Hamilton, that could be a more difficult task. Behind, we've got the two Force Indias, and then we've got the two Haas cars of Grosjean, Magnussen. Gasly still in 8th. Ericsson's back into 9th, ahead of Sergei Sirotkin, who's still running in the points in 10th place. But this race started with a dramatic accident involving Fernando Alonso. He's now talking to Lee.
Well, Fernando, great to see that everybody's okay. Did your car actually make contact with Charles Leclerc's car?
No, I think Nico came 300 kilometers an hour and hit us, and then he played a little bit bowling with the rest of the grid. But
when you were flying through the air, did you feel your car touch the halo of Charles?
No, I didn't feel where I was going or landing or anything. I saw the replay now, and I saw how good was this proof for the halo, and happy that Charles is fine, and all three were fine.
What goes through your mind when you're in that moment, when you're sort of flying through the air? We've seen it before here. It's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, it is dangerous. Well, you are not really concentrating on that moment of what is going on. You are just, sad and disappointed because, one guy missed so much. The breaking point is not a couple of meters. He comes with so much speed that you don't realize, or it's difficult to understand how you can miss the breaking point that far.
Well, it was strange, but whether we would be interested to hear from Hulkenberg. Bottas has now got past Stroll. That moves him up into 11th place. And the replay of the start did just show us that Ricciardo ran into the back of Raikkonen, causing his puncture. But Ricciardo had been hit from behind, remember, also because he got the damage to the rear wing. So it was a consequence of different events going on that took out several cars. We've now lost a total of 4 cars from this race already. We're only on lap 11 out of 44, so 1/4 distance completed. The Ferrari of Sebastian Vettel is in the lead, having started from 2nd. Lewis Hamilton, the pole winner, is holding on to 2nd position, but the gap up to 3.5 seconds. His teammate, who we're watching here in the Mercedes, who had to start down towards the back of the field, is gradually surging through the field and is now picking off the places one by one. He's got past Lance Stroll, and the next target is Sergei Sirotkin, which would push Sirotkin back out of the points. And that would be a shame in a way for the Russian, because he's got a birthday coming up this week and he's yet to score in Formula One. But keep his head down. You never know, there might be more opportunities later on in this race. Quick reminder that down at the back, Daniel Ricciardo, a lap down but still running. But the last one on the lead lap at the moment is Stoffel van Dorn in the remaining McLaren that's still here. Karun.
Yeah, just a quick line on the two leaders, Ben. Vettel's lead over Hamilton now nearly 4 seconds. Last time round, he took a full half a second out of Lewis. So clearly that Ferrari pace, which, Ben, you and I saw all through free practice, where they seem to have that little edge in the dry over Mercedes, is really coming to the fore here, because in the damp, wet conditions, Lewis delivered that quali lap. But once the track's dried out, that Ferrari pace is edging Vettel away.
Valtteri Bottas surges past Sergei Sirotkin to move himself into 10th place, and Daniel Ricciardo is kind of following him through, but being a lap down is a bit tricky. Christian Horner joins us from the pit wall. Christian, just talk us through the kind of decision-making process here, really, with Daniel. We saw the damage done on the opening lap, not much he could do about that, but what's the thinking here?
Well, obviously, if there's another safety car, he would be able to unlap himself. That will put him 1 lap down, and depends how his pace is, if he can, forgetting Ferraris and Mercedes, but if he can eke out a lap on some of the cars at the tail end of the top 10, obviously there's still options for him in this race. So at the moment we were going to keep going and see what progress we can make.
Bit of a chaotic start, wasn't it?
It wasn't half. So yeah, Daniel was unlucky to get harpooned by Fernando, so that damaged the rear wing, end plate pretty bad, the whole rear wing pretty bad, but the boys have done an amazing job to get that car turned around and back out there so quickly.
Meanwhile, Max has been making some very good progress indeed, up into 3rd place now. Is there any chance he can go chasing after our leaders, Vettel and Hamilton?
Well, let's see how things settle down. I don't think we've got the pace, as you can see at the moment, in clean air compared to Vettel and Hamilton, but let's see what the DEG is, and I think our main race is really against Valtteri Bottas.
Okay, thanks very much, Christian. Bottas is, of course, making his way through the order, and he's on a different kind of tyre to the ones that Verstappen is on, so it'll be interesting to see if that has a bearing on it.
Last time around, Hamilton's just managed to sort of peg the advance that Vettel was making. He's matched him on lap time, so stabilised that gap at 3.7 seconds. For Lewis to have the opportunity to use what we'd call the undercut, the ability to come in, put a fresh set of tyres on, turn up the engine and deliver a couple of quick laps, he really wants to be a bit closer than that 3.7. Ideally, he'd want to be no more than a couple of seconds away. It's a long lap here, so it is completely feasible that he could suddenly, with a fresh set of tyres and a quality mode on the engine, deliver 2 seconds advantage and then make it quite uncomfortable for Vettel. But right now, I think Vettel's doing enough to not have to pit until he works out basically what Hamilton's going to do, and then he'd be able to react to that.
Lewis Hamilton is the World Championship leader, and if things stayed this way, he would certainly still be the World Championship leader. It's a 24-point gap between them at the moment, and if it stayed this way, Vettel would only close 7 points of that gap, so it really does need some work from him.
Okay, Max, how's the balance?
Yeah, it's actually quite nice to drive. It's all under control.
This is good stuff, Max.
Good balance, he's happy with the car, and still early stages of the race. Let's just see what his lap time is now that he's had a completely clear lap. Yeah, well, it is, it's not too far off the pace of the leaders. Half a second, though, you know, is not going to allow him to close that gap up. And that's the difficulty. I think he's going to have a little bit of a lonely race, except for the fact that, as we heard from Christian Horner, they are keeping an eye on Valtteri Bottas. Actually, Bottas did switch to a new set of the super soft tyres, so he's on a much fresher set than the guys who are up there in front. Might indicate that he's going for a two-stop strategy here today, I would think. But let's see how far he can get. Bottas is currently behind Marcus Ericsson by 2.5 seconds. As we see the Force India just heading up the hill towards Leclerc. Perez is currently in that 4th place. Ocon behind him in 5th. That would still be a tremendous result for them, but they're not way ahead of Grosjean and Magnussen in the 2 Haas cars, and that's really where their race is going to be, versus Grosjean and Magnussen. And for them, there's a chance of, as I say, closing the gap to Renault in the Constructors' Championship. So could see a lot of changes. Ocon down the hill. Missed out on that first lap, didn't he? I'm sure it was because he was being careful not to get too involved with Hamilton and Vettel. His teammate Perez took full advantage, but at least they didn't hit each other, which they have done in the past on a few occasions. It was kept clean, and it will come down to around the pit stops as to whether he can take some advantage later on in this race, I would think. Meanwhile, in that top 10, Marcus Ericsson, keep an eye on him, and the Sauber, he could really do with a solid result here today. We know the other Sauber car is out of the running, and Ericsson's position at Sauber under a bit of pressure with some very good drivers coming onto the market without fixed seats for next year. So Ericsson will be aware of that. He knows he's got to deliver some results, and right now he's running in 9th place. He'll be satisfied, but he's got Bottas catching, so you would expect Bottas to take that place very, very soon now. Looking at pit stops, and those that started on the super soft tyre originally thought they'd be coming in earlier, but of course we've had quite a long safety car period at the beginning, and we're now up to lap 15, and we're not seeing any of the leaders heading into the pits yet. And no sign, David, of much blistering.
No, all the tyres seem to be pretty much under control. It's not, you're not believing we're going to see any rain, but there's certainly a bit cloudy here, and that's just taking the heat out of the sun. And then track temperature, of course, drops and takes you out of that window. It did look maybe as a little bit of blistering in the middle of, I think it was the Haas car there that we had the last rear view shot of. So depending on the car, of course, depends on whether you're pushing your car towards a blistering situation. And just a note on Ericsson, when you mentioned about running in 9th place, just under 2 seconds behind Gasly. The Sauber team has really taken a step forward, and benefiting from that good Ferrari power, there's no question. Front tyres looking completely clean on Kevin Magnussen there. The gap to his teammate is a couple of seconds. You can see him up in the distance. So running in clean air, that means he gets nice fresh air through the brakes for cooling, through the engine. It just looks like he's just driving this nice and consistently, trying to bring the car home. Quite a smooth driving style, not overly working the wheel.
Well, Sebastian Vettel leads this race by some 3.7 seconds over Lewis Hamilton. Max Verstappen is in third, Perez is fourth, Ocon fifth, and Romain Grosjean is holding on to sixth place. We are on lap 16 out of 44. Hamilton's just set a new fastest lap, 1:48.4. Does this mean he's been saving his tyres?
Come on, you try to get him. Keep pressurizing.
Keep pressurising, Marcus Ericsson is told. He's on the different tyre to those around him. He's actually the first on the road of those that started on the yellow-walled soft tyre. And he'll be hoping that those guys on the red-walled tyres will start to suffer now. And that's Pierre Gasly up ahead of him, the man who will be driving for Red Bull next year in place of Daniel Ricciardo, and who drove superbly in Hungary last time out to finish in sixth place. He's got another chance to score points here today. And he'll want to keep that Sauber behind him, if he possibly can. How much do you read into that fastest lap from Hamilton, David?
I think that's interesting now, and I think that what your comment there about has he just been sort of taking it easy on the tyres, take them through that phase of when the car's heavy with fuel, and now maintaining the last few laps, that gap at 3.7, as I mentioned earlier, really wants to see if he can get that down into the twos, and then it changes. It puts the pressure on Vettel. He would have been feeling quite comfortable with that gap. Again, Hamilton just going faster in the middle sector than Vettel, so I think he has been just playing the longer game, keeping those tyres in good shape. So all of a sudden, it's always interesting, isn't it, how the ebb and flow, the sort of feeling of who's got the advantage through a Grand Prix. And it did look early laps like Vettel was that man, but Hamilton now coming back strong.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on that. It's all pretty clear up ahead on the road for both of them. Ericsson here now coming in a bit more pressure from Valtteri Bottas as he himself tries to close the gap to Gasly, and it has come down, the gap to Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso, but he'll have to watch out. He's racing Bottas.
I'll keep you posted, but this is pretty much my pace. Struggling to get more out of it.
Understood, mate.
1:50.5 on that last lap, so it's a decent enough pace, but not as quick as Verstappen, who's doing 1:49s. Another new fastest lap on that lap by Lewis Hamilton, but not by a huge margin. He got just under 2/10 over Sebastian Vettel, so the gap is still over that magic 3-second mark. So Ericsson now coming over the line and getting to within 1.3 seconds of Pierre Gasly. That's not quite enough for the DRS to come into operation, of course, whereas Bottas behind him is within DRS range, so the likelihood is the Mercedes here is going to be able to go past on the next straight. Let's watch him, ride with him here.
DRS pops open and he has to come out of that slipstream very early. It's going to be a very straightforward pass. He'll be able to come back online for braking. It's the most sensible thing, really, that Ericsson could do, is not resist and try and see if he doesn't lose any time behind Bottas and can get sort of pulled up onto the back of Gasly.
Let's be clever there. Let's use Bottas to try to pass Gasly.
Of course, logical thing. Use Bottas to try and pass Gasly. Not easy, because when you're following the other car, of course, you end up losing grip as well. But he will try and take advantage of the fact that Bottas has come through to close that gap up a touch more to this car, the Frenchman Pierre Gasly in the Honda-powered Toro Rosso. I have to say the Honda power's delivering quite well this weekend, because it's a car which carries a fair amount of drag, but they've been putting together some reasonable speed trap figures, and hopefully, well, for the Gasly family, they'll be hoping that they can hang on in there for the moment and stay ahead of Marcus Ericsson. Good battles going on. Williams have now dropped out of the points with Sirotkin in 11th, Stroll in 12th. Carlos Sainz is next up in the Renault, 1.4 seconds behind. Hartley has dropped down from the original starting position, didn't have a particularly lucky first lap, so he's down in 14th place. Van Dorn and Ricciardo complete the runners. Any change up front on this lap? Well, we're seeing that the gap is still 3.3 seconds between Vettel and Hamilton, so no real changes. Vettel seems to be responding to everything that Hamilton is currently throwing at him. So we'll just have to monitor the situation for now. It is the fourth time that Vettel and Hamilton have shared the front row at this Spa circuit, funnily enough. On the previous 3 occasions, it's 2-1 to Vettel. He's won twice when they've shared the front row. Now it looks like Bottas has got the run. He's got DRS open, and he's going to sweep past Pierre Gasly, who doesn't fight too hard. In the background, it looked like Ricciardo was going past Ericsson as well. And in a way, that doesn't make too much difference. Ricciardo's still a lap down, but for Ericsson, again, it's a chance perhaps to follow him and close the gap up to Gasly. But if anything, the gap has opened up as a result of these quicker cars coming through. So Vettel maintaining that edge up front, 3.3 seconds the gap. Max Verstappen in a very clear third place in the Red Bull. The two Force Indias are still running a very solid fourth and fifth, and a great opportunity for Force India to double point score.
We can see the blisters on the rear of Bottas's car. Hamilton's gone through as the Mercedes team were pulling out to either cover the fact that Hamilton could have come in that lap, or it could have been to try and dummy Ferrari into reacting. Not systematically allowed to do that, but you can certainly get away with it once or twice. Hamilton got the gap down 3.4, sort of nip and tuck on lap times. Again, he would really like to try and see if he can get into sort of mid-twos, and then that really gives him some strategy option.
Pit stops become crucial, of course, and normally both these teams are very strong on their pit stops, although there have been one or two little errors. First sector virtually identical between the two of them on this particular lap. So Sebastian Vettel, who started in second, now leading this race. He managed to snatch the British Grand Prix after Hamilton got knocked into a spin, remember, on the opening lap, though Hamilton did recover for a brilliant second on that occasion. Vettel, though, looking to make the most of this excellent first stint so far.
Just looking, Vettel's tyres look clean. You can see that blistering, the line on the left rear of Hamilton. Not as bad as Bottas, but it's definitely there. And look at the Ferrari. Rear tyres completely clean. So Mercedes, you can drive with blistering. You certainly, if it's just a small line like that in the middle of the tyre, that tends to be because of the rolling resistance at very, very high speed. But that shouldn't be causing Hamilton to lose any pace. A little bit quicker than Vettel in the middle sector. So let's just see how he ends the lap. You can see there a little squat of power for Vettel, the rear sliding. So those tyres are certainly getting towards the end of their usable life.
We're on board with him. Let's just watch him into La Source. Careful with the throttle to make sure he doesn't get too much wheel spin. Now listen to him flat out, presumably, Eau Rouge. Watching from between the Armco barriers.
Yeah, that cameraman's so scared he doesn't want to stand up above the barrier, but that was nice and tidy. These wide track cars, big grippy tyres, the amount of downforce they've got in modern Formula 1, it's not really even an issue for them to be flat through Eau Rouge. You see that left rear tyre, a bit more delamination starting to appear. So that's probably going to force Mercedes' hand into stopping and then allowing the Ferrari team to react the following lap. You can see how late and slow Hamilton was going around the hairpin. No downforce on the car, and that's where he's really struggling for rear grip.
These guys are lapping in the 148, but I tell you what, Verstappen is now matching them on the last lap. Verstappen did a 148.9.
Let us know about the tyres when you can.
Tyres are good, says Hamilton. Despite the line that we can see on them, he's feeling that he's still got grip. But yeah, that was a good lap by Verstappen, so the Red Bull seems to be looking after its tyres well.
Oh, you see there the sliding of Vettel as he's getting on the power, coming out through turn 14. It's interesting with that blistering, and Hamilton's quite comfortable. And the tone of his voice sounded very upbeat. Very often we can see sometimes, or we sense that Lewis's chin drops during a Grand Prix when things aren't quite working out for him, but there was definitely energy in his voice.
Yeah, he's still up for the battle, there's no doubt about it. It's not over for him. The other tyre's beginning to blister. The other rear on Hamilton's car, you're beginning to see a line develop on that one as well, but it's not slowing him down any. Again, they're matched to the 10th of a second there, both on the 1 minute 48.7 on that particular lap. So even though the tyres are looking less good than they were in the early stages, it doesn't seem to be slowing him down too much.
Psychologically, just building a little bit of pressure on Vettel. He'll have seen that Hamilton's pulled back half a second. You can see in the slow motion there, the level of that rear blistering. Bit of chunking, actually, so that is getting to quite a high level. And the question now is, do Mercedes risk the fact that you could end up with a complete delamination? We've not seen that happen with the Pirelli tyres, but do they risk leaving him out there and maybe ending up with losing a second place, or do they let him continue to put the pressure on Vettel trust in the driver's comments and see if they can get that gap down a bit and then go for the undercut.
We have seen tyre failures in the past. Vettel had one go in 2015. Actually, Nico Rosberg had one go too, but it was in the latter stages of the race. You wouldn't expect it, certainly at this point. And they were still in the first stint. But we are coming up to half distance, and actually, this is a long stint for the super soft tyre. They're clearly happy with the way it's performing. But last year, for example, Hamilton stopped on lap 12, as early as that, to switch from his qualifying tyre to the second tyre. Let's listen to Verstappen.
This is good, Max. We'll just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, the Red Bull lap time is really coming into a window now. He's only a couple of tenths slower than Vettel and Hamilton. When you consider that they were more than a second off in normal dry running, you get the replay of that very spectacular crash that sent Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc, and Nico Hülkenberg, who was the pinball that started it all as he lost his braking into turn one.
With the sound as well.
Hamilton's in.
Lewis Hamilton in from second place. He's the first of the two leaders to stop, and he goes on to the mid-range soft tyre, so perhaps they were just giving up a little bit too much in the end. It was a very good stop, so he's sent on his way once more, and he's now got the chase after Vettel, who stays in front, of course, and we shall see who's going to have the better pace on this tyre.
Box. Push now.
Yeah, that's Ferrari reacting to Hamilton, who's come out behind Verstappen. So Verstappen a couple of seconds or so up the road, so Hamilton should pick up the slipstream on that.
Yeah, and he's on fresh tyres, so that should enable him to get past Verstappen fairly quickly, you would think.
Well, it's definitely a one-stopper, isn't it? If we assume that we're not going to see any rain late in the race, managed to go a long way on those super softs.
Further down the order, just to remind you, Marcus Ericsson still chasing after Pierre Gasly, but the gap still 1.7 seconds between them. No changes between the others. We've still got the two Force Indias running 4th and 5th, the two Haas cars in 6th and 7th, but this lap's an important one for Vettel. He needs to put it all together and make sure it's a fast in-lap as he heads to the pits, and then the team need to do their bit down there as well and send him on his way. If they can get it right, they should be getting him out ahead of everybody else. The gap to Verstappen, 18 seconds, and that is about the length of a pit stop here. So, can they get him out in front of Verstappen and Hamilton? That's the target, and it's the same strategy in terms of which tyre they're going to use. It's the yellow-walled soft tyre. The map shows us where Hamilton is, heading around the last sector of the Spa circuit as Vettel makes his way in, stops near the top end of the pit lane, and the guys go to work.
Hamilton's been honing in on Verstappen. They're just coming into the chicane now. You'll see them in the background there. You see Hamilton will pick up a slipstream and will pass Verstappen this lap, but they're both going to come out behind Vettel. It's going to be tight though, actually, isn't it? Vettel cutting through the inside of La Source, but you can see they've really used the power of the undercut to close up the gap, and that's definitely tighter than it was ahead of Hamilton going into the stop. Now this could work really well for Hamilton because he's not been held up by Verstappen, but he'll get DRS and he'll get the pass done here. Verstappen won't fight it. There you go, he doesn't fight it at all. He's thinking, right, you go Hamilton, I'm coming in your slipstream.
Lewis Hamilton gets past Max Verstappen. He is back into second place, but can he now chase after Sebastian Vettel? They are both on a brand new set of the soft tyres, and sometimes each car reacts slightly differently to the different compounds of tyre, and that's what we'll see over the next few laps. This was the pass, very straightforward for Hamilton.
Yeah, it actually worked out perfectly where he caught Verstappen. He didn't lose any time at the bus stop chicane, didn't lose any time at La Source, and you can see Verstappen sensibly moving the car over. There's no point in him running offline, picking up dirt on his tyres. He just doesn't have the straight line speed on the Mercedes, never mind with the DRS wide open.
So Hamilton into second place, and the race for the win here in Belgium is still on, but Vettel is responding with a very good middle sector that is quite a lot quicker than Verstappen's middle sector there, and that is impressive performance from the Ferrari. Meanwhile, let's not forget Valtteri Bottas and his climb through the field, because he's now past Magnussen and closing on Romain Grosjean. So Bottas up into 7th place, still trying to chase down a potential podium finish, but I don't think that's going to happen as Vettel comes across the line, and the gap to Hamilton some 1.9 seconds. Verstappen still in 3rd place, and then the two Force Indias are some way further back. Fastest lap once again by Lewis Hamilton with a 1:46.7, but remember, Vettel just did an outlap from the pit, so that doesn't kind of count in the same way. And he's now trying to show that that Ferrari has indeed got more pace. There are the top two then, fighting for the World Championship this year and fighting for victory at Spa. In the background, Bottas has now got past Grosjean. Grosjean's just come in, that's partly why. So the Haas crew are ready, and Romain Grosjean, who had such an inconsistent start to the season, so far putting together a very clean race. Stayed out of trouble in that opening sequence of accidents that we saw down towards La Source, down towards the hairpin. And he's kept it clean, and he's now back out, heading onto track in 10th place, but of course waiting for those up ahead of them to also make a pit stop and come into for a change of tyres. So Vettel, who's quickest on this lap? Well, actually Hamilton faster in the first sector than the Ferrari. We're just coming down to the end of the second sector now. Vettel trying to respond in the second sector here, and well, Vettel is a bit quicker in that second sector, so indicates maybe there's a little bit more downforce on the Ferrari than on the Mercedes, and maybe Hamilton will be a little faster in this final sweep down towards the last chicane. Conditions are still good here, still dry, no indication that it's going to rain, but who knows, here at Spa it can happen at any time. Back in 2008 it caused real drama at the end of the race when we had some rain. And look, it was a race that Kimi Raikkonen looked set to win, and then he made a mistake. It looked like a race that Lewis Hamilton was going to win, and in the end it went the way of Felipe Massa. So always unpredictable here, but for the moment Vettel is maintaining that lead. Still 2 seconds though, and if Hamilton could just get a little bit more off that, he could get in DRS range. It looks like Force India now preparing for a pit stop. I wonder if this is going to be Sergio Perez, who is the lead car of the two. No, it's Ocon, interestingly. They bring Ocon in first rather than Perez.
Yeah, well, Ocon was not, I don't think, in any real danger of being able to undercut his teammate, so Perez is comfortable. He would certainly have first choice, but if he's comfortable with balance, then they're playing have fresher tyres later in the race game.
And I think Perez has been told to up the ante because he's just set a personal best. So Ocon comes out behind Pierre Gasly, who's yet to stop. I tell you what, this Toro Rosso is very kind on its tyres. We've seen this a few times, going very deep into the race on a set of super soft tyres, and that is one of the strengths of that team. And meanwhile, Sirotkin's just come into the pits. That promotes Hartley up to 11th, but Hartley is yet to make his pit stop either, I believe, as Ocon already beginning to hunt around behind Gasly to try and reclaim that 7th position. In all of this, Max Verstappen is still in 3rd position on his super soft tyres. We're with Perez, expecting a pit stop at the end of this lap.
Checo, use everything from the tyre, use everything from the tyre.
Yeah, and that usually means he'll be coming in at the end of the lap here. Let's just listen in, ride with him. Pit lane entry coming up here. Is he going to take it in? Yes, definitely, because the crew's ready. Look how narrow that pit lane entry is. They really have to push hard as well. Very easy to make an embarrassing mistake there.
Yeah, it's an important part of the Grand Prix, making sure that you get into the pit lane to the 80 km/h speed limit and get out again. We saw Pierre Gasly spin on the exit of the pit lane in qualifying in his eagerness to get around, and Zach Gasly heading into the pits now.
Yeah, so that releases Ocon, but Perez will come out comfortably in front of Ocon. He will be mixed in around the Haas cars as well, so we'll have a look at that. I think he got out in front of Magnussen, and coming in now, Pierre Gasly. Crucial stop for these guys. That was neat, tidy, well choreographed and well executed. A stop time of 2.4 seconds, and he's now on his way once more. So opportunity for points to be scored here by Toro Rosso. He actually comes out behind his teammate Brendan Hartley, who's not yet stopped, so he comes out in 11th, but there's still an opportunity. Carlos Sainz scored the final point here last year for Toro Rosso. He was still at that team at the time before he made his switch to Renault. He finished in 10th place. Doesn't look like Carlos is going to score any points today, though, does it? Down in 14th position, and the Renaults really have not shown much in the way of pace. Stoffel van Dorn is ahead of Carlos Sainz now, as in fact swaps back again on that lap, funnily, as I speak. Sainz back into 13th, ahead of Van Dorn, who is in 14th position. Pit stop getting ready for Verstappen then. In comes the Dutchman, who's on his way to potentially his first ever podium finish here in Belgium. Gone a long way on those super soft tyres, hasn't he? But they have lasted extremely well on the Red Bull. Another rapid stop, 2.5 seconds, not the fastest we've seen, but nonetheless, he'll come out comfortably, still in third place. A long way back from our two leaders, who are up at the top of the hill now. They're into Les Combes already, so that's the extent of the gap that Vettel and Hamilton have over him. But he is comfortably ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who, as we heard from Christian Horner earlier, is really his main opposition. Now, Bottas has done a lot of laps on his super soft tyres, and we are expecting him to have to stop again. So Bottas could be making a few overtaking manoeuvres at the end of the race. In comes Marcus Ericsson. So he's gone a long way on the soft tyres. Can they still score points here today? Magnussen is in for Haas. Had to wait just a fraction of a second as Ericsson came past him. Oh, and he's gone on to a set of super softs, of course, because he started the race on the soft tyre, so that potentially gives him some good pace in the closing part. And where does he come out? With Brendan Hartley there.
So Brendan will have momentum as he goes down to Eau Rouge, and in theory should be able to carry that speed into a pass along this Camel Straight, ideally positioned. Ericsson goes tight, and you can just see the Toro Rosso sails around. That's not great for Ericsson on those fresh tyres, because he will be quicker than the Toro Rosso on the older tyres, the harder yellow sidewall tyres as well.
And what they might do is leave Hartley out for another lap or two to protect Gasly, because by holding Ericsson back here, it will help Pierre Gasly later in the race. We know that Ericsson was always trying to catch Gasly, and they know he's could be trouble for them later, so this has really helped them to get Hartley in front. It might not be the best for Hartley's race, but he might have to do the team thing here.
Yeah, indeed, and well, you want to try and get, if you're a team like Toro Rosso, as many points as possible. Get both cars in the points ideally, but let's see what Hartley can do.
Up front, though, no great change between Vettel and Hamilton, by the way, although Vettel is just eking out that gap. He's now got it to nearly 4 seconds, so it was down to 2 seconds soon after the pit stops, but the gap has increased just a touch, and Vettel has just opened up a little bit more of a break over his big rival. On board with Ericsson, he knows how important it is to get past this Toro Rosso. Is he going to have a go into the hairpin? He's looking at it.
Yeah, Brendan defends well, and he decided not to go for the big dive down the inside. You sort of sense if that was a Max Verstappen or a Lewis Hamilton, they would have gone for the dive, but he's playing the safer game. Will he try down into the source?
He is having a look.
Yeah, that will give Brendan an opportunity to slipstream him up through Eau Rouge, but to actually hold him out, and that meant that Hartley was a little bit slow to get to full power, so I think Ericsson will be safe in the knowledge that Hartley shouldn't be able to slipstream him again. It's all going to be well. In actual fact, Hartley gets through Eau Rouge a lot better than Ericsson, so he's coming back at him with the DRS.
So here comes Brendan Hartley trying to get that place back, and by using the DRS he's got a chance of doing it, and he's done it. Great work for the team, and you have to say, did Marcus Ericsson make a mistake actually overtaking into La Source? Should he have waited?
Yeah, well, the benefit of hindsight, that's absolutely what's happened, and on that, they shouldn't be in that situation on a new set of super soft tyres. Then he should have got that job done. You can see with the DRS down the inside, it looked as if he'd managed to hold Hartley out there by taking the car straighter for longer, but then down through Eau Rouge again should be straightforward to be flat out, so I'm not quite sure what well, you're clapping then, boys, but in a few moments you're not going to be.
This was the response from Hartley, who lined it up perfectly and had so much more straight line speed with the Honda-powered Toro Rosso, but it's all down to having DRS available, and he used it effectively. Now there is Valtteri Bottas. He's currently in 4th place, but he's done a lot of laps already. He made a very early pit stop onto these super soft tyres. He's now done 26 laps on these tyres, so you would imagine he is going to have to make another pit stop before the end of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Hamilton. He dropped back quite a bit on Vettel on the last lap. I get this sort of feeling that he's sort of thrown in the towel on this battle. As the laps count down towards the end of the Grand Prix, I think they're just too evenly matched in speed, really, for Hamilton to have an answer for Vettel.
Right, Ericsson's decided the other strategy this time, David. He's not gone for it into the hairpin. He's now trying to pick up the DRS and do exactly what Hartley did to him last time around. He's well placed to do it.
Yeah, he should come, there you go, nicely in that slipstream. DRS will pop open, Hartley will go to the right, and then he's got so much more speed. Bottas has done long before the braking point.
So perhaps he wasted a lap there by not doing that first time around, by going for the move a little too early. He's kind of cost himself a lap, but we'll see how that works out in the end. He is back into the top 10, points on offer, but remember, he was chasing after Gasly, and the gap between him and Gasly is now 7 seconds, so that's a lot to make up, although in theory he's on a good set of tyres to take him to the end of the race. Here we are with Bottas then. These tyres are a lot older. Yeah, and he's headed in. So, as we thought, this is another pit stop for Valtteri Bottas, a different strategy employed by Mercedes for him, starting from the back of the field after his engine change. Now, which tyres does he go on to? He goes on to the yellow-walled mid-range soft tyre, and he's sent on his way. 2.6 seconds, not the best we've seen today. Now, he's going to have to work his way back up the order again, isn't he? Let's see who's coming through there. Perez has gone through, Ocon has come back past as well, and then he will be racing those cars and seeing how far up the order he can get. Is there any chance for him to close the gap up to Verstappen? Well, that's going to be a tall order, I think, in the remaining 15 laps, but that will be what he'll try and do. And Verstappen, in the meantime, he's been lapping consistently fast and not far off what the leaders are doing. So Valtteri Bottas started from the back. How far up can he get? Some of the moves that he's made in this race, brave moves down at Eau Rouge to claim a place. Of course, he's in a car that's a fair bit faster than these midfield cars, so he's been cutting through very effectively, a little bit like we saw Lewis Hamilton able to do at the British Grand Prix when he got spun down to last position. But on this occasion, I'm not sure that Bottas is going to be able to get a podium finish out of it, unless something a little unusual happens in the closing stages. As you can see, just cutting his way through the traffic, using that DRS zone to best effect. And that has brought Bottas back out in fourth place. Further down now. He's now in 6th place, behind the two Force Indias and chasing after Verstappen with a big gap to close. So Toto Wolff, not the best day for Toto. Got a car in 2nd, got a car down in 6th place, hopefully moving up the order, but isn't a classic Mercedes performance today, David?
No, all come down to the
We're
start.
going to box this lap to retire. Box this lap. Keep up the pace on the way in.
They're going to retire Ricciardo. I suppose, you know, safety car hasn't helped them.
No, 2 laps off the main lead. We're going to save the mileage on the engine and gearbox. So a disappointing day for him. On the weekend, it was the first one back after the break when that announcement came that he's heading off to Renault. He'll be hoping that they make big improvements in their chassis performance for next year.
Just out of luck today, I'm afraid. He got a clip from behind from Alonso's flying McLaren in that first corner incident. They changed the rear wing, sent him on his way, but 2 laps down from the leaders, and ultimately no safety cars to further help him move up the order. Corinne.
Yeah, just thinking about Pierre Gasly's race, you know, it's been a big couple of weeks for him. He's going to be in this car that's on screen at the moment, Daniel's Red Bull, of course, next year. He's done another good job, hasn't he, Ben? Only 4 seconds behind Kevin Magnussen, and I think it's widely recognised that Haas has been a better car than the Toro Rosso this year, so I think a good job from him. One quick line about, you know, when they pitted, you wondered whether perhaps the Mercedes would have better pace on the soft. It hasn't quite worked out. The gap was 2.5. It's now hit nearly 5.5 seconds. So in fact, Vettel and the Ferrari, even on the soft tyres, had a bit more pace and has just been able to edge away from Lewis Hamilton.
Thank you, Corinne. Yeah, that's interesting because it just goes to show that the Ferrari has got great pace, and as we thought going into the summer break that it was potentially the faster car, and that's how it looks here at Spa as well. So although Hamilton had the advantage of track position on qualifying, The Ferrari does seem to be that little bit quicker. Christian Horner joins us once again. Sad to see Daniel Ricciardo now out of this race, Christian.
Yeah, unfortunately, we wanted to wait until lap 30, relying on safety cars and whatever else to be able to get back onto the lead lap. And obviously, engine mileage is better kept in the bank with him for later in the year. So with the prospect of not being able to finish higher than 16th, we've elected to retire the car.
Now, how much is Max going to be under threat from Bottas? Because it looks to us as though Max has been lapping very quickly and consistently.
Yeah, Max is doing a good job at the moment. Obviously, Bottas has pitted, but Max is running at a nice pace. He's a couple of tenths off Vettel on that lap, but we just don't have the legs around this circuit of certainly Elite 2, but hopefully we might have enough to hold off Valtteri, but we've got to keep pushing.
Great stuff, thanks, Christian. Well, Bottas has just managed to get past Ocon now, so he is into fifth place.
Any chance of rain, maybe?
Not in the next hour.
Well, Max clearly daydreaming about what other opportunities can come his way when he's asking any chance of rain. And his engineer very quickly delivering the bad news that no, nothing forecast.
Daniel Ricciardo out of the car now. So our top runners, we've got Vettel leading this race by 5.3 seconds at the moment from Lewis Hamilton in that second position. Max Verstappen looking good for third place in the Red Bull. Fourth place for Sergio Perez. Fifth place now for Valtteri Bottas, there he is. And sixth place for the second Force India of Esteban Ocon. That 33 out of 44, so here we go. We are 3/4 of the way through the race, and Vettel has controlled it perfectly, really, from lap 1 when he managed to get past Lewis Hamilton just before the safety car came out, managed the restart after the safety car for the first lap crash, and it's working well for him so far. On board Sergei Sirotkin, and this is a pass by Carlos Sainz. Let's just see how it went. Carlos has moved himself up into 11th place here. Good straight line speed and through.
Nice job, mate.
Yeah, happy about that. And the Williams is giving away quite a lot in a straight line, despite the fact that it has the Mercedes power unit. It's quite a draggy car this year, and that's something that they are very aware of. It's not creating the amount of downforce they hoped for. New lap record for Valtteri Bottas, so he is going quickly on that relatively new set of tyres. So it's not over yet, as Bottas next chases after Sergio Perez. But after Perez, it really is a huge gap to Max Verstappen, and it's hard to see him closing that.
No, I don't, unless Verstappen has an issue, he's not going any further than fourth. But based on our conversation with Toto ahead of the race, they can predict, given the pace advantage they have over the middle of the field, they predicted they would get themselves up to maybe fifth or sixth. But of course, with the incident involving Raikkonen, that damage to the rear wing, the DRS getting jammed open, having been clipped by Daniel Ricciardo, then that's actually made it not a bad weekend, all things considered, with the penalties.
Just confirming, so main loss to Vettel, braking last corner and speed between 18-19.
Speed between 18-19, that's just between the two last little bits of the chicane. That's a funny place.
Yeah, the change of direction. The Ferraris looked strong there all weekend. That's where Hamilton in the first restart behind the safety car locked up slightly and had that under rotation. So the Mercedes not quite as nimble at low speed, low downforce. And you see Vettel very much looks like he's got this race under control. A little bit of pressure on him after the pit stop, but other than that, it's never really looked like Hamilton has really got the overall pace. I think if he had track position, it would have been difficult for Vettel. But the Ferraris just seemed a little bit stronger in dry running all the way through free practice and now in the race.
Important couple of weeks, of course, with Monza coming up next weekend as well. Another opportunity perhaps for Vettel to close the gap, although we have to go back to 2010 when Ferrari last won a race at Monza with Fernando Alonso at the wheel. Mercedes have been incredibly strong on the Italian track in recent years because of their engine power, but there is no denying the fact that Ferrari power unit has taken a huge step forward this year. Both these teams, by the way, are running their latest version of their engines, aren't they? Both Hamilton and Vettel got upgraded engines this weekend, and you have to say at the moment Ferrari are looking the stronger.
Yeah, it's been interesting, isn't it, that Mercedes in this new hybrid era were the class of the field, and a lot of that, they've clearly got a good chassis, but a lot of that early advantage was in the power unit, and slowly but surely Ferrari have chipped away at it. And that is the constant theme throughout Formula One. You've got to keep developing. If you don't find pace, if you don't find power, if you don't find improvements, then you will eventually be overtaken.
Bottas still trying to close up the gap to Sergio Perez. That's his main target for now, to try and take that 4th place away from the Force India. Well, Force India, what a time they have been through recently. The team going into administration just after the Hungarian Grand Prix, being bought out by a consortium led by the Canadian businessman Lawrence Stroll, the father of Lance Stroll, who currently drives for Williams, of course, but all sorts of talk that Lance might be switching to Force India within the next couple of races. But what a comeback for that team after going through a bit of a nightmare. No surety for the staff at that Silverstone base, and yet they've ended up with a 2nd row on the grid yesterday, and today it looks very promising, as though they're going to get a very solid point score. And from being last in the Constructors' Championship, David, Force India, going into this race, because they've had all their points wiped out, they will go straight ahead of Williams. If they stay where they are now, they'll be ahead of Williams immediately.
Yeah, it's a dream scenario for them, isn't it, as the new owners?
Giving everything, man.
Well, that's in response to the fact that Bottas is pulling that gap down, 3.8 seconds, 3.6 seconds now, the gap to Perez. So there isn't going to be enough laps, I don't think, for him to hang in there, running a second a lap slower than Bottas. So he's going to be on the back of him the next few laps. And then Perez, how hard can you defend against a much quicker car on such an open racetrack?
I tell you what, not only even if they finish 5th and 6th, if Perez does get passed by Bottas, they would actually match Toro Rosso for 18 points as well. So it really would be a remarkable start to the new management here. There's Bernadette Collins, a strategy engineer for Force India. It's now the Racing Point Force India team. It's actually racing under a British licence now. So if they were ever to win a Grand Prix, it would be the British national anthem that would play. But really, what we're just looking at is still one of their best performances of the season here. They have had a couple of double point scores this year, but generally they haven't had as strong a season as last time.
Could be games of play at the end of the race, and you'll still catch Perez.
Yeah, well, they reckon he's still going to catch Perez, but clearly it's just Perez that they're thinking about now. The laps are running out for them to go chasing after Max Verstappen. So will Perez hold on for that 4th place? Don't forget, Sergio's had a podium finish this year. That was at Baku earlier on this season. That was a tremendous result, grabbed out of opportunity, partly helped by the fact that Bottas got a puncture right at the end of the race in an event it looked like he was going to win at one point. But right now it's Bottas who is bearing down on the Mexican and closing that gap bit by bit. 3 seconds it was as they went over the line last time around. Meanwhile, Vettel maintains a 5-second advantage over Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton just chipping away at that, getting it just under the 5-second mark, but no real change. And Max Verstappen heading for what would be his first ever podium here in Belgium, where he gets huge support from the Dutch fans who cross over the border. It's not a long distance at all to the Dutch border. He also gets a lot of support from Belgian fans as well, with a Belgian mum and having been born in Belgium. So yeah, it could be a great day for Max Verstappen here if it all just hangs together for the remainder of this race. I say that because last time out in Hungary, let's not forget that Max had a power unit failure, which he was deeply upset about. So let's just hope, fingers crossed, they can bring it home. Behind them, the Haas cars are still there. We haven't seen much of them, have we? But Romain Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen are still lined up in 7th and 8th places. Gasly's on target for points for 9th place, and looks as though the final point could still go to Marcus Ericsson in 10th in the Sauber. Sainz is a long way behind him, having got past both Williams now. And then outside the points, of course, we've got Brendan Hartley and Stoffel van Dorn as well. And then that long list of retirements, most of those really as a result of the first lap accident. In fact, all of them were all involved in some way in the first lap accident. Hulkenberg piling into the back of Alonso, launching Alonso over Leclerc, ripping the rear wing off Ricciardo's car, which bounced into Raikkonen, causing damage to the back of his car. Ultimately, it was problems with the DRS on Raikkonen's rear wing that meant that he had to retire after a very disappointing day and some quick pace before.
Last lap, Bottas, same pace as you last lap.
Yeah, so Bottas is not closing as much as he might have hoped, David.
Yeah, it surprises me because he was pulling a second lap on him, so I didn't see Bottas having an issue around the lap. And I just think the underlying pace in that Mercedes, though, is just going to be too strong.
How do we rate Perez's performance versus Ocon here today? Because they were right together on the opening lap. Perez took advantage of Ocon being a bit cautious, but since then Perez has kind of opened that gap up.
Yeah, it's not a big gap between them, but it certainly looked like Perez has been more comfortable with his car. Both of them, I think, raced hard but fair on those opening laps, but it was absolutely crucial that Perez was able to break around the outside and overtake Ocon into the top of the end of the Kemmel Straight, as at one point it looked like Ocon could actually have even passed Vettel, but he backed out of it on the wrong line, on the tight line, and that's where Perez was able to get around the outside.
Ocon was probably, his mind was probably full of all the nice things that Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton had said about him in the press conference yesterday. They were both incredibly complimentary about Ocon, his performances, and how he deserves to be in a top seat. And that was probably going through his head a little bit as he found himself side by side with Vettel and Hamilton, and he thought, no, I don't want to play a part in this.
Well, there you go. Normal order resumed there with lap time. You've got Bottas a 46.9 versus a 48.3 for Perez. So that gap down to 1.6. So I'm predicting he'll overtake him next lap around.
Okay, so it doesn't look as though Perez will hold on much longer. He'll fight his corner, I'm sure. Looking at how the points will be if it remains as they are now, the gap would go from 24 points to 17 points between the top two, because Vettel will score 25, Hamilton will score 18. Interestingly, Hülkenberg will still just hold on to 7th in the championship, kind of best of the rest, of course, behind the top 3 teams, despite going out on the first corner, piling into the back of Alonso. We still don't know the full story to that, but clearly that was a very nasty accident indeed, and it took out a number of cars as a result. But Hülkenberg will still hold on to 7th place in the championship. So Perez now becoming more and more aware of that silver car, closing in behind him. Perez, who's had a total career number of 8 podium finishes, and Force India had a great result here thanks to Giancarlo Fisichella back in 2009 when they got a second place finish. Well, it doesn't look as though he's going to get a podium here today, not unless something very strange happens up front, but he can still try and hold on for 4th place, which would be his 2nd best result of this season, following that 3rd place in Baku. But Bottas now getting closer than ever, and he could well be within DRS range as they go over the line. Yeah, he's exactly a second behind. So it looks as though, David, your prediction could be correct here.
Yeah, little under rotation there from Bottas early in the braking at the source, so that might compromise a little bit his exit. And, well, a bit further away than would be ideal. So maybe I was a lap out.
Well, the gap is closing. You can see the timing on your screen. He was within DRS range, so that is open. So he's got the extra speed in a straight line. Is he going to be close enough at the end of the straight? No, he's not. They're on the brakes, and he's not quite there. So maybe it will have to be next time around. Perez will sigh a little sigh of relief if he has time in the busyness of driving a Formula 1 car around Spa. Just looking at the speed trap figures, you can see that Hamilton tops that at just over 200 miles an hour, presumably in the slipstream of Vettel at some point. Sainz must have had a very good slipstream to be second on that list, because the Renault-powered cars have actually been struggling a little bit for straight line speed, so he must have had a kind of double toe, I would imagine, for him to have recorded a speed of 199 miles an hour.
Bottas just trying to get himself into position here. He might be within an opportunity down into the chicane, the bus stop chicane. Nice early on power out of 14.
A lot of talk about Force India being a Mercedes junior team in the future. Does that have any bearing on what Perez is thinking right now?
Yeah, it's a fair point, but I suspect he's just trying to drive as clean as possible. Right, Bottas better in positioning this time. He's got to try and not have that under rotation, under braking at the source. The Force India certainly not struggling for traction. We saw their ability to leave this hairpin that we're just about to go in. Bottas quite a tight line there, but look at there's always going to be that sort of concertina effect, but Bottas a bit closer this time. Let's see how he goes up through Eau Rouge. You can just hear they're absolutely flat, but you can hear the engine speed sort of drag down a little bit with the friction through the bottom of the hill. So rear wing open, Perez defensive. He won't be able to do anything for that. Bottas carries the speed into the braking zone.
Valtteri Bottas goes into 4th place, gets past Sergio Perez, and he's come from the back of the grid, virtually the penultimate row of the grid anyway, to take that position. He was 17th in the lineup as a result of the engine change, and he's now moved into 4th position, and it was straightforward in the end with the extra speed that he had. He was able to accelerate past, and so Valtteri Bottas on target for 4th place. He has had a podium here in the past when he was driving for Williams back in 2014. He finished in 3rd position on that occasion, but it will be better than last year when he finished in 5th with Mercedes, having lost out a bit on one of the restarts. He actually lost 2 places to both Raikkonen and Ricciardo. Here you go, another look at it from on board with Valtteri. Very straightforward indeed, and through into 4th place. Did pick up a reprimand earlier this weekend for squeezing Stoffel van Dorn on the grass, but no other penalties to play, and it was his first reprimand of the season. So we're looking at Max Verstappen here, and he's about to lap Brendan Hartley in the Toro Rosso, who's running in 14th position currently, but ahead of Stoffel van Dorn in the McLaren. Really isn't a great day for McLaren, is it? Losing Alonso in the opening lap of the race, Van Dorn running in last place. We're trying to celebrate 50 years since Bruce McLaren took the first win for the McLaren team in 1968 here at Spa. But it's such a different McLaren team right now, sadly, and they have had a horrible weekend. They'll want to forget this one as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's not been a great weekend at all. Once they're in the process of trying to restructure, yet everyone focused on, as we spoke with Jules de Ferran yesterday, he said they're very much sort of focused on next year's car now.
2 podiums for Jos Verstappen in Formula 1, and one of them was actually here, although it only came after his teammate then, Michael Schumacher, was excluded after the race for too much wear on the plank underneath the car, and Jos was therefore promoted to 3rd, but that still counts as a podium finish in Formula 1. Won't it be lovely if Max can repeat that performance in front of so many fans here today and take his first podium here?
Okay, dude, you're doing a really good job.
You're doing a really good job. We haven't heard much from Romain today, have we? It's all been very peaceful.
Yeah, no, serene as he drives around. It's another strong result for the team, getting them back, get them to the finish line in 7th and 8th.
Yeah, they will score useful points here as we ride with him. They'll be picking up 10 points. It won't be quite enough for them to catch Renault in the championship. They are currently some 16 points behind Renault, but of course Renault are failing to score any here today, with Hülkenberg out at the start and Sainz down in 11th position. So a useful day for the Haas team. And there is Magnussen, yeah, just 4 seconds behind, but putting in some pretty quick laps himself. Good middle sector there as well. So he's still chasing down his teammate. In the meantime, Sirotkin told that in the Williams his tyres are good to the end, and that Sainz ahead is starting to struggle a little bit. Well, we'll see. Sainz is 2 seconds ahead of Sirotkin, but it still looks as though Sergei Sirotkin is not going to be able to score his first points in Formula 1. Despite running in 10th place in the early stages, he's now down in 12th position. Stroll is only 1.4 seconds behind him, so the 2 Williams could have a bit of a race to the checkered flag, in fact. Looking at the drivers that are no longer in this race, Nico Hülkenberg, he crashed out. He was the one that initiated the accident down at turn 1 when he crashed into the back of Fernando Alonso, who was taken out. His car flung into the air, flung over the halo of Charles Leclerc. So sadly, of course, Charles Leclerc, another on that list of drivers no longer with us in this one. And then the other 2, of course, Kimi Raikkonen, who picked up damage, a puncture from that same incident. He did get going again with a new set of tyres, but it was a rear wing failure, a DRS failure, that ultimately put him out. And then Daniel Ricciardo, who also had damage from the first corner incident. They ran him for as long as they could while it was worth it, but in the end they decided to retire him, look after the engine and gearbox and save it for another day. Well, 7 days' time at Monza, where it'll be in hard use once again. There's our race leader. He's opened up a gap of 10 seconds now. I'll tell you what, David, this has been a bit of a quiet race between Vettel and Hamilton. But in terms of the outright championship, it really does set things alight because of the information it gives us as much as anything. That Ferrari is blindingly fast. He's got a gap to close on Hamilton. But after this, we've still got another 8 races in the championship.
Yeah, and he's also got good support in terms of outright speed from his teammate Raikkonen. Unfortunate today, but as the 1 week's time will be in Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. A lot of straights there, a lot of opportunity for them to use their good straight line speed, and I think quite telling that where Mercedes are struggling here in the low speed chicane, well, there's plenty of those in Monza, so this form would suggest that Ferrari are going to be the favourites in Italy next week.
Look at the tyre marks on Leclerc's halo. So Alonso couldn't really feel anything, but you can just see, and actually cracked. Is it cracked or is that just tyre marks? Difficult to tell. But it really did serve its purpose. We're still in the first year of these halo devices, these protection devices being on the cars, but it served him extremely well. We're going on to the final lap. Sebastian Vettel is headed for victory. Karun.
Yeah, just thinking on this final lap, David, on that point you mentioned, absolutely right, that straight line advantage is going to come into play at Monza next week. Do you think Ferrari's one big regret from this weekend will be that they didn't have Raikkonen up there to take more points off Lewis? Because clearly today they had the fastest car. Once Seb got in front, that's it, he was off. And really it should have been an opportunity for them to take another 3 points away from Hamilton, wasn't it?
Well, it was indeed, but I really don't think it was anything other than racing incident. You know, the racing gods decided that Raikkonen was going to get involved in that first corner incident with Daniel Ricciardo. So, unfortunately, it was just the way it worked out. So you've got to feel for Raikkonen, though, because he's certainly, this is a track he drives well at and was very quick.
Indeed, well, Raikkonen out early on this occasion, but Sebastian Vettel, who started on the front row, didn't initially get into the lead round the first corner, but then found his way past as they went up the Kemmel Straight for the first time. There really wasn't anything Lewis Hamilton could do about it. The Ferrari has been showing tremendous pace all weekend long, fastest throughout all of the practice sessions, only missing out in the final part of qualifying when the rain came down and Lewis Hamilton demonstrated his magic. But apart from that, it's been a tremendous weekend for Ferrari here in Belgium. Sebastian Vettel wins the Belgian Grand Prix by quite a big margin in the end over Lewis Hamilton. He closes the gap in the World Championship, reducing it to 17 points. But Hamilton has done what he needs to do for now, protect his position at the top of the table and go on to fight another day. And heading towards his first ever podium at this Spa circuit. He was born only some 60 miles away from here, and he is going to come through to take third place to the delight of the fans. That'll be a real celebration for them. And Verstappen, who's had one victory this year, was never on target to win on this occasion, but nonetheless he's done a great job. Some of the tail enders just coming across the line now, but we will see Valtteri Bottas bring home the other Mercedes in fourth place. So both the other drivers had problems at Mercedes and at Ferrari. Raikkonen out, Bottas though fighting his way back to finish in fourth place. And Sergio Perez is going to finish in fifth position. That's a tremendous effort from him, from the whole Force India team. After all the trials and tribulations they've been through, Force India get a fantastic double point score. It'll be 18 points for Force India. They will be ahead of Williams and tied with Toro Rosso. But Sebastian Vettel wins in Belgium, his fifth win of 2018. First in Silverstone, he has now surpassed Alain Prost's 51 victories. He's now on 52 career wins, and he takes his third win here in Belgium to add to the two he had with Red Bull in 2011 and 2013. It's their first Ferrari win here since 2009. A long, long gap for Ferrari, and it means a great deal to them. And it also means that Ferrari go ahead of McLaren on victories around this particular Spa circuit. There had been 12 all coming into this race, but now they've got one margin over McLaren, who had the complete opposite of a weekend, with Van Dorn finishing last on the road and Alonso failing to finish at all. Well, Hamilton Or just have to accept that on this occasion, the Ferrari was the faster car. There was not a lot he could do about that, and it will concern him going into what is still a long second part of the season. Monza in just a week's time, where you can imagine Ferrari will be more fired up than ever to try and repeat a victory. And then a whole sequence of races around the world where Vettel could shine in that very, very quick motor car. Max Verstappen, of course, the third of those that will head up onto the podium, and that's a good recovery considering he was 7th on the grid, bringing the Red Bull to finish in 3rd position, taking his first podium in Belgium and his 5th podium of the year. So let's go down and hear from the drivers, from Martin Brundle.
Congratulations, Sebastian. Your 52nd victory in Formula One, moving you ahead of the great Alain Prost, and a very important victory. Take us through that first lap, the crazy first lap up to Les Combes.
Well, yeah, I mean, more wins than Alain, I think. Wow. Sorry, first lap, yeah, I had a great start, and then I'm not sure Lewis saw me. He pushed me quite far to the left. But I knew my chance would be later on, up the hill, and I think I timed it well. Obviously, last year I was always ending up short. So, yeah, seems like, you know, it was better this year. Obviously, we had a little bit less wing, but yeah, timing is crucial, and I managed that perfectly, I thought. Then the Force India came as well, so I was... But yeah, as soon as I was ahead, I was quite relieved, and obviously with the safety car, then it was the other way around. So I thought, well, I got that done. Now I get the safety car, but yeah, I had a good restart, a very good exit of the first corner, kept it clean. It was tricky with the tailwind braking for the first turn, but yeah, after that, a very smooth race. Lewis pushed very hard, especially in the first stint. Towards the end, he was very fast. In the second stint, it could turn everything down a little bit and control the pace, but yeah, great weekend.
I love your answers. They're like an essay. But then you had the pace. You had the pace then, didn't you?
You asked for?
No, perfect. Thank you. Then you had the pace after that to just hold him where you needed to.
Yeah, I mean, also going through traffic, I think I was a bit, you know, fortunate. I got them on the straight, so I didn't lose much time. But I could see, you know, he wasn't really pushing anymore the last 15 laps, so I could relax a little bit more. But yeah, it was quite tricky. I really enjoyed the race, and yeah, you know, to get a lot of time on this track is always very nice. In a great car, even better. So now obviously looking forward to next week.
Well done again. Lewis, 7th podium here in Spa, not the one you needed today, but still scoring 18 points.
Yeah, congratulations to Seb. We did everything we could. I did everything I could in the race, and I think we ultimately performed quite well this weekend. But I mean, he drove past me like I wasn't even there on the straight, so we got to keep pushing as hard as we can to try and see if we can catch up, but you know, that's all I can say.
You had to go into the final chicane for the safety car restart. You thought you might be able to sneak through there?
I think I probably could have, but again, he just would have sailed past me down the straight, so they've got a few trick things going on in the car. So I did what I could, and we've done what we could. We just got to keep working.
Monza coming up, so their straight line speed will be pretty handy there too.
Yep.
We'll see what happens next weekend. Max, congratulations. Well, you had an awful lot of friends in the grandstands, but it looked a pretty lonely race on the track.
Yeah, I mean, especially after the first 10, 12 laps, but initially it was a bit of chaotic, and I had to get past a few cars, but we stayed out of trouble, and after that we just did our own race, and of course very happy to be on the podium here.
This track's not always been kind to you, but today it worked really well, didn't it? That was the best you could achieve with the pace the car got.
Yeah, so, you know, before we have been a bit unlucky, but, you know, it happens sometimes, but I'm very happy with today.
Okay, well done. Don't miss the race next weekend in Monza, of course. Please join us there.
So everybody heading up for the podium now as Vettel celebrates his victory.
And P1, Sebastian, P1. Fair and square, bravissimo.
A molto, grande. Grazie ragazzi. Bella gara.
Go in the pit lane, wrong direction.
Red light, smells danger. Grazie. Thank you. Good efforts all weekend. Well done. Getting the package ready. Well done, motoristi. Grazie.
Grazie Sebastian, bellissima gara. Martello.
So some happy comments on the radio, and there's a real sense of focus in that Ferrari team at the moment, isn't there? That they are on a mission to keep improving and keep developing, and they are doing it at the moment. They haven't always done this, especially in the second half of the season, Dave. That's sometimes where they let themselves down, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting comments from Lewis Hamilton as he dries the sweat from his back, but the feeling he has that they're doing something, did he say tricky?
Yeah.
It's awful. Strange one, really. But
I already went on the scales.
Okay. Okay.
Just trying to listen in.
How many times in the end? Not super duper, were they?
Okay.
Yeah. Everything orange here, huh? Quite nice.
Yeah, it was nice to see. Like,
hey.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Huh? Yeah.
So a bit of chat going on in the room before they get onto the podium. They're all fairly low-key at the moment. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton not quite having the car today to really take the battle all the way to Sebastian Vettel, who had the edge from the opening laps. And just a quick note that Force India with that great result, scoring 18 points. But what we must mention is that Marcus Ericsson did get a point for Sauber as well, which was a crucial one for them. And Gasly scored a couple of points for Toro Rosso, which has certainly helped them. And it means that Force India will therefore slot in behind both Toro Rosso and Sauber in the Constructors' Championship. Out onto the podium they come then. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and our race winner here at Spa, it is Sebastian Vettel. The first win for Ferrari in 9 years here in Belgium has made that team very, very happy indeed. and a fully deserved trophy for Sebastian Vettel, who has started the second part of this Formula One season in style with a dominant victory, really, it has to be said. Fastest in the dry, the Ferrari with either Raikkonen or Vettel. They missed out in the wet qualifying, but they certainly delivered in the dry on race day, and they can be delighted with the improvements that they have made to that car in recent times. Lewis Hamilton prevented from getting a hat-trick then. He was on target for it with 2 wins before that summer break began, but Vettel has prevented that happening. But second place, still vital points for him, and it means that he maintains a 17-point lead in the World Championship. And now listen for the cheer for Max. A wonderful response for Max Verstappen as the fans from Holland and Belgium join forces to celebrate, and his dad's got a big, big smile on his face. Sebastian Vettel has taken victory in the first race after the summer break, as he did at the beginning of the year when he beat Lewis Hamilton to win in Australia. And the key part of that is the Ferrari does seem to be the fastest car right now. In a week's time, we go to Monza, the home race for the Ferrari team. Can he repeat the success there and continue to close the gap in the championship? Lewis Hamilton will be doing his utmost to prevent it.